Why are you so sad?
asked the little girl mid-flight. The CEO laughed, then cried for the first time in years. The late afternoon sun streaked across the airplane window, casting pale gold light over the rows of passengers as Flight 708 from Denver prepared for takeoff to New York. David Cole, 32, sat in an aisle seat in economy, an inconvenience that still faintly irritated him. His original flight had been canceled, and every business class seat on this one was taken. Now he sat among rustling snack bags, crying toddlers and restless travelers, his pressed navy suit looking absurdly formal in the cramped cabin. He adjusted his silver watch, then stared out the window with a gaze that didn't see much of anything. His face was handsome, controlled, but beneath that polish was the unmistakable fatigue of someone running on success and emptiness at once. David Cole was the CEO of Freshbound Foods, a rapidly expanding company in sustainable groceries. On paper, he was a visionary. In reality, he was exhausted. A flight attendant approached, leading a young woman and a small child toward his row. "Excuse me, sir. Could you move your bag? They're seated here." David shifted his briefcase without comment. The little girl climbed into the middle seat beside him, her pink puffy dress brushing his sleeve. She wore a red backpack with a yellow sun stitched in the center. Her legs dangled above the floor. The woman with her, presumably her mother, took the window seat and leaned back immediately, closing her eyes. Loose blonde hair glinted in the sunlight. David barely looked their way. Then, something tapped his shoe. A crayon. He looked down. A green one had rolled from the girl's lap. He picked it up and handed it to her without a word. "Thank you, mister," she said brightly. Then, after a pause, "You look tired." David blinked, caught off guard. "Just a long day," he said flatly. The girl didn't seem to mind. She studied him with wide, curious eyes, the kind that hadn't learned to look away yet. She unzipped her backpack and pulled out a small sketch pad. "This is Lemon," she said proudly, showing him a wobbly drawing of a doll with yellow hair. "She's my best friend." David gave a small nod. "And Mommy makes better sandwiches than McDonald's," she added, flipping to another page, where a smiling sandwich waved from a plate. He smirked, just slightly, but it was there. The girl kept talking. Her name was Rosie. She was 3.5, loved giraffes and butterflies, and thought airplane windows looked like big jelly beans. David wasn't exactly engaging, but he found himself listening, his mind quieting for the first time all day. Meanwhile, the mother, Diana, though he didn't know her name yet, slept against the window. Her face was young but weary, framed by hair that caught the sunlight like honey. Her jacket was faded, her jeans worn. Her shoes had seen more steps than comfort. Rosie chatted on, about pancakes shaped like stars, and how she wanted to live on a cloud. "Mommy works at a restaurant," she said matter-of-factly. "They give her free ketchup but not free fries." David nodded absently, a trace of a smile tugging at his mouth. Then came the question. He had turned back toward the window, lost in that blank space between business and burnout, when Rosie tilted her head and asked softly, "Why are you so sad?" The words landed like a sudden chord in a quiet room. David turned, startled. No one had asked him that in years, maybe ever. His mouth opened, then closed again. But Rosie didn't wait for an answer. She dug into the pocket of her pink dress and pulled out something small. A yellow smiley face sticker, wrinkled, one corner curling. She peeled it, and with careful fingers, leaned over, and pressed it gently onto the sleeve of his dark blazer. "This helps Mommy smile when she's sad," she said, her voice solemn but sure. "Now it's your turn." David stared at it, this tiny bright circle shining against the dark wool of a suit that cost more than most people's rent. He should have been annoyed, but something about her certainty, her tiny hand, and that absurdly cheerful sticker broke something open in him. A laugh escaped, small, real, unguarded. Then another. Not for a client, not for a camera, not for control. Just because. He looked down at the little sticker once more. And for the first time in months, maybe years, David Cole smiled. David was still staring at the little yellow sticker on his sleeve when he realized Rosie had gone quiet. Her head had tipped gently onto her mother's shoulder, her small hand still gripping the edge of her stuffed bear. Her soft curls peeked out from under the hood of her jacket, and her pink dress rose and fell gently with each breath. Across from her, Diana stirred. She blinked slowly at the cabin lights, then sat up straighter, only to pause as she noticed her daughter wasn't leaning on her, but on the man sitting beside them. David remained still, as if afraid to disrupt the moment. "Oh, I'm so sorry," Diana whispered. "I hope she hasn't been bothering you." David glanced at her. His face was unreadable at first, but then he gave a faint shake of the head. "No," he said. "Honestly, that's the kindest thing anyone's done for me this week." Diana blinked, caught off guard. Then she gave a hesitant smile. "Rosie talks to strangers. I used to worry, but she always seems to have a reason." David arched an eyebrow. What was the reason this time? Diana looked at her daughter, now dozing with her cheek against a stuffed bear. "Maybe you looked like someone carrying something heavy, the kind of suitcase people can't see." David let out a quiet laugh, his second of the day. It surprised him how easy it was. Diana leaned back slightly, more relaxed now. "She's big on smiley face pancakes, carries at least 3 crayons everywhere. That backpack is basically a mobile art studio." "I'll be cautious," David said, watching Rosie sleep. After a pause, he added, "David Cole. I work in Clean Label Food. Just got out of a terrible meeting." Diana turned toward him with interest. "Clean Label Food? Sounds more noble than I expected from a man in a suit that costs more than my rent." David chuckled. "You're the first person to call it noble." "Well, if it helps people eat better." "Maybe it is," she said, shrugging. "I'm Diana. And that," she added, nodding toward Rosie, "is my boss, full-time." "She's got excellent leadership skills," David replied, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. A sudden jolt made the plane tremble. Diana gasped softly and instinctively leaned toward David, steadying herself with a hand against the armrest. David placed a calming hand on her shoulder. "It's okay," he said gently. "Just turbulence. Totally normal." Diana nodded, glancing quickly at Rosie, who had begun to stir. The little girl whimpered and clung to her bear. "It's okay, baby," Diana whispered, rubbing her daughter's back. Her voice fell into a low, melodic hum, some half-remembered lullaby, shaky but soothing. David listened, oddly moved. He had sat through earnings reports and interviews without blinking, but something about that soft tune gripped him. Rosie blinked sleepily, then turned her head toward David. "Uncle Sticker," she mumbled, her voice muffled with sleep. "Are you still sad?" David looked down at the sticker on his sleeve, then back at her. "No," he said. "Turns out the tiny nurse is very good at her job." Rosie smiled, satisfied, and nestled back into her blanket. Diana brushed a few cookie crumbs from Rosie's dress and reached up to fix her hair. Then she paused, noticing the crumbs on her fingers. She reached into her bag for a napkin, fumbling. Without a word, David slipped a white handkerchief from the inside of his jacket and handed it to her. "For once," he said, "a handkerchief is doing what it was made for." Diana let out a soft laugh. Not a loud one, but the kind that lives somewhere between fatigue and genuine amusement. "I can't remember the last time someone offered me something clean or soft." David didn't say anything. He just looked at her, and she looked back. The cabin lights dimmed slightly as the captain's voice came over the speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll begin our descent shortly. Please fasten your seatbelts." They both turned toward the window, watching streaks of sunlight fade behind drifting clouds. The silence that settled over them wasn't uncomfortable. It felt earned. They said nothing more. But something shifted between them. A look, a breath. Not quite a promise, but close enough to be the beginning of something new. The kind of moment not printed on a boarding pass. It had been a week since the flight. David Cole was in Albany, scouting a location for his company's next clean food market. The meeting had dragged, and the gray drizzle outside matched his mood. Turning off the highway, his stomach reminded him he had skipped lunch. A diner caught his eye, Marlene's, tucked beside a gas station. Its neon sign flickered, but warm light spilled from the windows, and the promise of hot coffee pulled him in. He stepped inside and shook rain from his jacket. A bell chimed. The scent of fried potatoes filled the air. He took one step forward and froze. Behind the counter stood Diana. She wore a burgundy apron, her golden curls tied in a messy bun, jotting something on a notepad. She had not seen him yet, but when she looked up, her eyes widened. Neither of them spoke. Diana's hand flew to her hair. She glanced at her apron, clearly self-conscious. David gave a small smile. "This is unexpected, but I'm not complaining." Before she could answer, a tiny voice rang out from behind the counter. Sticker man. Rosie ran out, arms wide like she had spotted Santa. Her pink dress twirled as she dashed toward him. David crouched down, laughing. "Hey, sunshine." Rosie hugged his legs tightly, beaming. "I told Mommy you'd come back." He glanced at Diana, who looked half embarrassed, half amused. "Did she now?" Diana shrugged, cheeks pink. "She says that about the Tooth Fairy, too." "They're equally unreliable," David said, smiling. Diana wiped her hands. "You hungry? Kitchen's open, unless you're afraid of more ketchup stains." "Battle scars," he replied. "I'll risk it." She led him to a booth in the corner. He ordered coffee and grilled cheese. Rosie sat beside him, coloring intently. It was slow that hour, just a few locals scattered across booths. Rain tapped at the windows, and soft country music played overhead. After a while, David looked over at Diana. She was leaning against the counter, arms folded. "If you could start over," he asked, "what would you do?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. "I don't really think about that," she said after a pause. "Dreaming takes energy, and I don't have a lot of that. But if you did?" David pressed quietly. Diana's eyes drifted to Rosie. "I'd want a place where she's safe, where school lunches aren't a worry, where sirens don't keep her up at night. That'd be enough." David studied her. No speeches, no ambition for more. Just a mother trying to raise a child in a world that made it harder than it should be. He did not know what to say. Diana raised an eyebrow. "Not the kind of answer a CEO expects, right?" "Actually," he said softly, "it might be the most honest one I've heard in years." They sat like that, no meetings, no to-do lists, just a booth, a girl coloring giraffes, and two people who, for the first time in a while, felt lighter. As he left, David paused by the car, then turned. "I'm in town 2 more days," he said. "If you and Rosie want pancakes, not the sticker kind, I know a place." Diana smiled, raising an eyebrow. "You sure about that? Her syrup skills are dangerous." David grinned. "I've faced worse." The calls started 2 days after the diner. At first, it was Rosie's idea. She grabbed Diana's phone and insisted on calling Mr. Smiley to show him her drawing of a pancake with legs. David answered on the first ring. His face, usually tense from meetings and market updates, softened into a grin. The second Rosie popped onto the screen. "You gave a pancake legs?" he asked. "Everything should walk if it wants to," Rosie replied proudly. That night, the call lasted 5 minutes. The next, 10. Soon, it became a ritual. Video calls every evening around 7:30, right before bedtime. Sometimes David told silly stories. Sometimes Rosie talked about the squirrel she saw or how her mom made broccoli, but nice. She started calling him Mr. Smiley, a name that stuck no matter how much he pretended to protest. Diana kept her distance at first, behind the phone, folding laundry or doing dishes, listening without engaging. She had met men before who were charming, helpful, and kind, until they wanted something. But David never asked for anything. He never crossed lines. He asked about Rosie, listened carefully, and laughed softly at things only a child would say. And that was what slowly wore down Diana's guard. Not grand gestures, just quiet consistency. Then, one Thursday, the call didn't happen. Rosie had a fever. Her cheeks were hot, her voice weak. Diana held her for hours, heart pounding as she tried to keep calm. Around 9 p.m., the phone buzzed. "David." She hesitated, then picked up. "Hey, little sunshine," David said gently. Rosie stirred and waved weakly. "She's been warm all day," Diana said. "It's probably a cold, but I can't get her fever down. Do you have any children's acetaminophen? I've only got 1 dose left." "Text me your address," he said. "I'll bring more." "David, you're in the city. That's nearly 3 hours away." "I'll be there," he said, and hung up. It was close to midnight when he knocked on her door, soaked from rain, holding a small pharmacy bag and a stuffed giraffe. Diana stared, stunned. "You drove 3 hours? For medicine and a toy?" He stepped in, shrugging. The giraffe was Rosie's idea. She just didn't say it out loud. Rosie stirred in bed as he entered her room. Her tired eyes lit up. "Mr. Smiley," she whispered. "Hey, Nurse Rosie." He smiled. "Let's get you better." He gave her the medicine, sat with her until she dozed off, then stepped quietly into the kitchen. Diana stood there, arms crossed. "Why do you keep doing this?" she asked softly. "Why show up?" David looked at her for a long moment. "Because I want to." Later, as he stepped outside to leave, something made him pause. He glanced back through the kitchen window. Diana was washing a bowl. Then she reached into her coat, pulled out a bundle of coupons and tucked them into her wallet, alongside a neat stack of wrapped sandwiches. The next evening, David came by again and lingered outside after dinner. He watched her leave the apartment, walking 3 blocks through the drizzle to an alley where 2 men sat on flattened cardboard boxes. She knelt, handed them the food, exchanged soft words, and walked home alone. The next day, David asked, "Why do you do that? You're barely getting by yourself." Diana looked him in the eye, calm and clear. "Because everyone breaks sometimes, and if I can make someone's night a little less cold, maybe my own feels warmer too." David said nothing, but something shifted inside him, not out of pity, but because, for the first time in years, he realized he was standing in front of someone richer than him, in every way that truly counted. It was a Wednesday afternoon when David brought it up. They were sitting on a bench outside the diner, Rosie happily coloring in her book while eating a melting vanilla cone. The sun filtered through the trees, casting dancing shadows on the sidewalk. Diana looked more rested than usual, her apron slung over her shoulder, hair tied back in a loose bun. David cleared his throat, trying to sound casual. "I've been thinking," he said. "We're opening a new location in Albany. The fresh produce section could use a manager who actually cares." Diana glanced at him, eyebrow raised. He continued, "Careful. You know the suppliers around here. You know what people want, and..." He hesitated. "You'd be good at it. Really good." Diana's smile faded. "You want to offer me a job?" "I do," David nodded. "With full benefits, better pay. No double shifts. You'd be home for dinner. For Rosie." Her eyes narrowed slightly, and she sat up straighter. "And you think I'm qualified for that? With what? My community college courses and diner management experience." David tried to explain. "It's not about a degree. It's about heart. And you have that in spades. People trust you. You know food. And more importantly, you care about people. That's what I want in my stores." Diana looked away, jaw clenched. "This isn't about business, is it?" "What?" "You feel sorry for me. For Rosie. That's what this is." "No," David said quickly. "That's not. You see a single mom trying her best and think, let's rescue her. But I don't need to be saved, David. I've made it this far without help from any man. And I don't want to be some project that makes you feel better." Her words hit harder than she probably intended. David recoiled slightly, like someone had slapped him without warning. "I didn't offer you the job out of pity, Diana," he said quietly. "I offered it because I believe in you, maybe more than you do right now." She didn't respond. She stood, brushing ice cream sprinkles off her lap. "Thank you, but I'll pass." With that, she turned and walked inside, leaving David and Rosie alone on the bench. Rosie, oblivious to the weight in the air, looked up and offered David the last bite of her cone. But he could not eat. He could barely breathe. The silence between them lasted 4 days. No calls, no bedtime stories, no sticker jokes. Rosie noticed immediately. She did not understand the tension, only that her Mr. Smiley had stopped smiling, or showing up. On the 5th day, a package arrived at David's office. It was hand-delivered by a staff member at his company's warehouse who lived near Diana's neighborhood. "No return address," the man said. "Just said it was for you." David opened the brown envelope and pulled out a folded sheet of paper, construction paper, covered in marker and glitter glue. A drawing. 3 stick figures, holding hands. One had messy yellow hair labeled Mommy. The middle one was small with a pink dress, me. And the tall one on the right wore a bright blue suit with a sticker drawn on his chest, Mr. Smiley. Above their heads was a crooked little house with a chimney, hearts puffing out like smoke. And in Rosie's shaky handwriting, it said, "I want this one day. But Mommy is sad again. Please come back." David stared at the drawing. His chest tightened in a way it had not in years. He had built a multi-million-dollar company from scratch. He had shaken hands with politicians and been photographed in Fortune magazine. But nothing in his life, no award, no deal, had ever undone him like that one drawing from a 3-year-old girl who just wanted her family whole. He pressed the paper to his chest, closed his eyes. It was not pity. It was love. and it was time he stopped running from it. The storm rolled in just after sunset. Wind howled through the alleyways, rattling the windows of the old apartment building where Diana and Rosie lived. The power cut out around 7:40 p.m., sudden, sharp, and complete. Rosie whimpered as the lights went dark. "Mommy?" Her voice was small, trembling. "I'm here," Diana whispered, pulling her daughter into her lap. She reached for the flashlight in the kitchen drawer, only to find the batteries dead. Her phone was at 8%. And the backup lantern? Gone since last winter. She held Rosie tightly on the couch, wrapped in an old blanket, humming softly to calm her. But the little girl was shaking. Diana had just picked up her phone, debating whether to call someone, anyone, when headlights swept across the front window. Then came a knock at the door. She opened it, stunned. David stood there in the rain, hair damp, coat dripping at the edges, holding a bag in one hand and a portable generator lamp in the other. "I figured you might be in the dark," he said simply. She blinked at him, speechless. Behind him, his car was still running. He stepped inside quickly, setting down the bag. The portable lamp cast a warm yellow glow across the room, instantly changing the atmosphere. "Hot food," he said, pointing to the bag. "And one more thing." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, round projector, the kind that shone stars onto the ceiling. Rosie peeked out from under the blanket. "Mr. Smiley?" she asked, blinking. David knelt beside her. "Hi, kiddo. Heard you needed some starlight." He plugged in the device, adjusted the angle, and the ceiling of their living room transformed into a sky full of softly glowing constellations. Blue, green, and soft white stars danced gently above them. Rosie gasped. "Oh, wow." She clapped her hands and reached up as if trying to touch the stars. Diana just stood there, watching it all unfold like a dream. Within an hour, Rosie was asleep on the couch, bundled in David's coat, her tiny fingers still clutching a piece of garlic bread. Diana sat across the room, watching her daughter breathe, for once, peacefully. "She hasn't slept like that in days," she murmured, more to herself than to David. He said nothing, just smiled and handed her a mug of tea he had brought along in a thermos. They sat there in silence for a while. The storm outside raged on, but inside the room, everything was still, warm, safe. David leaned forward and gently adjusted the blanket over Rosie, then pulled another one over Diana's shoulders without a word. She looked at him, really looked at him. His suit jacket was still damp. His hair stuck slightly to his forehead. His shoes were soaked. "You didn't have to do any of this," she whispered, voice trembling. "You didn't owe us anything." "I know," he said quietly. "Then why?" Her voice cracked. David didn't look away. "Because you and that little girl, you did something no one else ever could," he said, his voice low and steady. "You made me feel alive again." Diana's eyes filled, and she turned her face away, wiping her cheek with the sleeve of her hoodie. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. But inside, there was only the soft hum of the projector and the steady rhythm of Rosie's breathing. David sat back beside her on the couch, not touching, just close enough to feel the warmth. And when Diana finally leaned her head on his shoulder, neither of them said a word. They did not have to. The house was still dark. But somehow, it had never felt more full of light. The envelope came in the mail on a Tuesday morning, plain and unassuming. Diana opened it while stirring oatmeal on the stove, expecting another reminder for overdue bills. But instead, it read, "Congratulations. You've been selected for the Fresh Start Scholarship, awarded to single parents returning to complete vocational education in hospitality management." Her hands froze. Inside was a letter with her name at the top, signed by the director of the Cole Foundation. Her heart thudded. The Cole Foundation. She did not need to guess who was behind it. That night, after Rosie had gone to bed, Diana sat at the tiny kitchen table staring at the letter for a long time. Her mind spun with conflicting thoughts. Gratitude, hesitation, fear. She had not asked for this. She had told David about her dreams once. About how, before getting pregnant at 19, she had wanted to run a small restaurant, maybe a family-owned brunch place with an open kitchen and smiley-face pancakes. And now, suddenly, a way back was in front of her. But accepting it felt complicated. She did not want charity. She had spent years standing on her own. She could not go back just because a kind man made it easy. The next morning, she left the envelope unopened on the counter. Later that evening, while packing Rosie's backpack for daycare, Diana hesitated, then casually mentioned, "I might go back to school." Rosie's eyes widened. "You mean like me?" "Sort of," Diana said with a soft smile. "But I'm not sure yet." Rosie leaned in, her little voice serious. "If you go study, Mr. Smiley can pick me up, right?" Diana blinked. "What?" Rosie nodded. "He always brings snacks, and he lets me pick music in the car." Diana laughed, really laughed. Rosie, in all her 4-year-old wisdom, had just said what Diana had not dared to think aloud. This was not about charity. This was about belief, about love, about people showing up and helping you remember who you were before life got heavy. 2 days later, Diana accepted the scholarship. That weekend, she texted David a photo of her holding up a first day back sign, wearing an old backpack Rosie had decorated with stickers. David's reply came in seconds. "Proud of you" doesn't even begin to cover it. From that point forward, things began to shift. David adjusted his schedule so he could help drive Rosie to and from daycare on the days Diana had late classes. He showed up with flashcards for her quizzes and joked that he finally had homework again after 10 years of board meetings. Sometimes, Diana would catch him watching her, not with admiration, but with something quieter, respect, that kind of rare, soft-eyed admiration that only comes from knowing what someone has walked through and still chosen kindness. Diana, for the first time in years, felt like she was building something again. Not just a degree, a life. It was not perfect. She still worked nights twice a week. Rosie still got fussy some mornings and spilled milk on her assignments. David still had calls at odd hours, but they were showing up for each other. One evening, as David helped Rosie glue macaroni onto a class project, Diana stood at the sink and just watched them. He did not have to be there, but he was, over and over again. Later that night, as Rosie slept and David was putting on his coat to leave, Diana touched his arm. "I never said thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" he asked. "For seeing me. For not trying to fix me. Just being there." He looked at her, and for the first time, reached for her hand. "You don't have to be fixed," he said. "You just needed someone to remember what you're worth." Diana looked down at their hands, and then up into his eyes. It was not a grand gesture, but it felt like the start of something true. The backyard was bathed in the warm, golden hues of early autumn. Leaves crunched softly underfoot as Rosie ran back and forth between picnic tables, her pink dress fluttering behind her like a small flag of joy. Balloons bobbed in the crisp October breeze, and a homemade banner read, "Happy 4th birthday, Rosie." Laughter filled the air. David stood near the grill, still wearing his apron, flipping veggie skewers and sneaking extra marshmallows to the kids. Diana sat beneath a maple tree, barefoot in the grass, sipping apple cider, her cheeks flushed with warmth and something deeper, peace. 1 year ago, she had been serving hash browns in a diner at the edge of town, her dreams boxed up behind overdue bills. Now, she was back in school. Rosie was thriving. And David, well, David was still David, but lighter. Less of a storm in a suit. More of a steady sky. As the sun dipped lower, casting longer shadows across the yard, David called out, "Birthday girl, come here." Rosie came barreling toward him, her arms out like airplane wings. What? "I've got one last present," he said, holding out a small square gift box. Rosie's eyes widened, but David held it out, not to her but to Diana. She looked up, confused. "Me?" "Trust me," he said, smiling. Diana opened the box slowly. Inside wasn't a necklace, or earrings, or even a fancy watch. It was a brand new roll of smiley face stickers. Bright yellow, untouched, waiting. Diana blinked, her throat tightening. David reached in, peeled one off, and leaned in gently. With care, he pressed it over her heart, right on the chest of her simple white blouse. "This helped me smile once," he said softly. "I want to do the same for you, every day." Diana's hands flew to her face as the tears came, fast and unexpected. She laughed through them. "That's not fair." Rosie clapped her hands, bouncing with excitement. "Does that mean we're all family now?" David knelt down, pulled Rosie into one arm, and reached the other out to Diana. She fell into him without hesitation, and just like that, in the middle of laughter and cake crumbs and the smell of cider, the three of them fit. Not perfectly, but honestly, Rosie looked up at them, eyes shining, and shouted to the sky, as if the world needed to know. Mommy's not sad anymore. And Mr. Smiley's really smiling now. No one corrected her, because she was absolutely right. Thank you for watching this story from Soul Stirring Stories, where the quietest moments often hold the loudest truths. If Rosie, David, and Diana touched your heart today, don't forget to hit that hype button to show your love. Your support helps us keep telling real, emotional stories that remind us what truly matters: kindness, connection, and a little bit of unexpected magic. And if you want more stories like this, filled with warmth, healing, and hope, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. We'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep looking for the stickers that make you smile.